With the recent release of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake on Nintendo Switch, many fans have begun speculating on what the next Zelda game to be remade will be. From just general wants and suggestions to what they feel makes sense to remake next. Being a fan myself, I of course have my own thoughts about this. Whilst remaking the Oracle of Ages and Seasons games next would make sense to the timeline, I would personally want to see The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword remade next. It's the only 3D Zelda game that hasn't actually been remade yet, and whilst that isn't the biggest deal in the world, the game is also stuck in 480p, and whilst graphics don't mean much to me personally, many fans in this day and age do value the graphics of a game, sometimes ahead of the gameplay as well. The point is, there are multiple reasons for Skyward Sword being the next game to deserve a remake, and if this were to happen, this would give the developers a chance to maybe fix or polish some of the rough patches and quote-unquote issues with Skyward Sword. And that got me thinking, what does a potential Skyward Sword remake need to improve on and or fix? So I've put together a little list of the most important things I personally believe a Skyward Sword remake must improve on. So, without further ado, here is my list of everything a Skyward Sword remake on Nintendo Switch must improve and fix. Quick disclaimer, I will not be criticizing the game's story and asking for it to be changed. Whilst the story to some degree was very repetitive, it's not really something that can just be changed. The game wouldn't be the same as it's an important part of Skyward Sword's telling of how Hyrule came to be. Along with that, remember this is a combination of my own personal thoughts and thoughts from other fans. With that out of the way, on to the list of improvements. Firstly, the Overworld. This was probably the only thing I personally really didn't like within Skyward Sword when playing it. Having already played other games in the series like Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Ocarina of Time, once I completed the sort of opening tutorial area, I was expecting to see a massive overworld filled with lots of things to do and lots of sights to see. Ocarina of Time had Lon Lon Ranch and grottos beneath the ground. Twilight Princess had distant locations to draw your attention to, as well as a few side quests involving the overworld itself. Majora's Mask had a few grottos and different sites that caught your attention. Wind Waker had islands, giant octos, lookout platforms, and even the occasional puzzle. But when I got to Skyward Sword, none of that was really there. Instead, we were presented with a very open, but bland sky. It was a stunning sight and very cool idea for the first few minutes, but once you've taken a little fly around town, seen some of the islands, there isn't much else. The only memorable things to me were the Lumpy Pumpkin and Bamboo Island, a shot with a small side quest and a minigame. That's about it. There are a few other things here and there, but not much. For an overworld, it was pretty empty, and more of the action was down on the surface, which is fair enough. But if the game was to be remade, then there are a few things I'd add to improve the overworld. Firstly, add some more shops. Whilst you can get what you need on the main island of Skyloft, it would be pretty cool if in a remake the developers added in some new kinds of potions or item upgrades that are only available outside of Skyloft. This would give players a real reason to go out and about and travel the open skies. Along with that, add in a few more mini-games. Even just simple things like target practice games that use the sky as a background or element to the minigame. The Bamboo Island game was honestly really fun and created a good impression for what was to come, but sadly there wasn't really anything else after that impression. A fun little idea could even be that Beedle travels from island to island in the remake, and hell, the developers could even throw in a side quest or two where we need to help Beedle with his endeavours. Anything to give it a bit of life. Next up, the motion controls. Yup, the motion controls. I'm sure most of you saw this one coming, but it's definitely something that needs to be discussed. Many fans have a say on this, and rightfully so. So many fans across the board have complained about the game's motion controls and having several different issues with them. But just to clarify, I didn't personally experience that many issues. If anything, I don't even recall any. I believe many of the game's issues actually stem back to an individual's setup and how they are playing the game. Motion controls on the Wii were designed to work best standing up and in an open space. If you play the game sitting down at your desk, I can understand why you might be having some issues, but that doesn't excuse them. In this day and age, you would expect motion control technology to have improved, and what would you know? It has. With the Nintendo Switch coming out back in 2017, we also saw the introduction of the Joy-Cons, and having played a few of the motion games they are used in, I can confirm that they are absolutely phenomenal. 1-2 Switch, Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, and Mario Odyssey being great examples. We do now have motion controls that are leaps and bounds better than the Wii's Motion Plus controls. So even when the game is remade and put onto the Switch, I feel it could be an incredibly smart decision for Nintendo to take the time to move over the existing motion controls over to the Switch's motion controls. You'd like to think that wouldn't be too hard. Although there is one thing regarding the controls that could prove to be a challenge. If you've followed me for a little while, you might have heard me mention in the past that I want to see the controls also offered with the standard sticks and buttons format. I thought it would be a challenge, but definitely possible to transfer over, until I found an article whilst making this video that was with IGL Numa and quoted him saying the following after being asked about making Skyward Sword without motion controls. That's a little hard. I think it might be close to impossible. Granted, technology can always develop and or be created by Nintendo themselves, it pretty much rules out the idea of having the option between motion and regular controls, which I would have personally loved to see. Honestly, despite seeing that quote, I still believe a regular controls version could somehow work. It would be a much slower experience, but Skyward Sword nonetheless. I suppose the developers wouldn't want a lesser experience due to having to switch between what way your sword strikes and motion features along the same lines. Along with those two things, another issue of sorts that should be fixed is how much Fi holds the player's hand throughout the game. This one isn't as big of an issue, but still a complaint a lot of fans had. Many players felt as if Fi made the game way too easy by telling us exactly where to go and at times exactly what to do. This removed the great feeling of figuring something out for yourself and actually accomplishing a task all by yourself. Fi walked us through many parts of the game, and to some degree sucked the fun out of certain sections, where in my opinion, it would have been a lot more enjoyable of an experience if we were left to experiment and figure it out ourselves. So if the game was to be remade, I feel like having Fi pipe down a little would go a long way to the experience of the game. After all, the game is very linear already, so it's not exactly hard to get lost. Other than that, I don't really see the game needing many more major improvements. The game itself is actually fantastic, and has one of the best and arguably most important stories to the series. It's just ruined by 2 or 3 flaws. If I included literally everything to this list, then it would be filled with small things, such as maybe changing how high up the camera angle is, and just small, weird things that aren't really necessary. One other thing to note is that don't change the art style. Whilst Link's Awakening having its art style change work well for it, I can't see the same working for Skyward Sword. I'm only saying this because I've seen a few fans ask for Skyward Sword, but in Breath of the Wild style? What? That just sounds weird to me. Just sharpen it up a little and bring it up to 720p or 1080p. That'll do the job just fine. I personally hope that we see this happen sometime within the next 3 or 4 years. We know not so long ago that the Zelda team hinted at wanting a Zelda game out every year on the Nintendo Switch, and whilst that's a bit of a push, it's definitely good ambition, and shows that they are wanting to make games. If that were to actually happen, then we could see Skyward Sword come to the Nintendo Switch shortly after the Breath of the Wild sequel, or maybe even before it, depending on when that game comes out. Regardless, I just hope we get the game on Switch. I'd happily settle for just having the game, period. Thank you so much for checking out the video, I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of regarding a possible Skyward Sword remake. Is there anything you would change, fix, or improve upon? If so, then let's see it in the comments. A huge thank you goes out to all of my wonderful and amazing Patreon supporters, as your support allows me to keep making videos just like this one as often as possible. So special thanks to Hexovian, Leonarco1, Keitala, Karika, Saphira Sky, Daniel Kilman, Neighborslove13, Barky Doggo, Arlie Quinn, M, Chris Simpson, Andrew, and Brett Harris. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you. A quick shout out to my friend Chris, or as many of you may know him as Hexovian, as he has first Skyward Sword video for his birthday, and since I had the idea waiting to be used, I finally got round to it. So happy birthday to you, dude. We are also currently approaching my goal of 10,000 subscribers at the time of recording this video, so if you did enjoy this one, it would be highly appreciated if you could give the video a like, share, and maybe even subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. It is very much appreciated. Again, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.